Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Intercompany Financial Management Insights series, our monthly discussion series with business leaders. My name is Varun Tejpal. I'm the CEO and co-founder of FourQ, the intelligent end-to-end solution for intercompany financial management. And today I have the pleasure of chatting with another distinguished shared services leader, Paul Davies, Head of People Operations at GE. Paul, welcome.
Hi, Varun. Great to be here.
Paul, I'll jump straight into it. I know you're a busy person, so I want to be respectful of your time. But you have a history of, really developing and leading shared services at GE. Can you just talk a little bit about, your personal journey in shared services and, how it's been over the past few years?
Yeah, sure. And Varun, I think this is a journey I think a lot of your watchers will be able to relate to today. For us, it was really about getting to standards, right? We happen to call it enterprise standards here at GE. But I think in the early days of shared services, it was how do we create processes and transactions that are by and large consistent and the same across each of our different business units, as well as across the geographies that we operate in. Of course, there are many differences, Varun, as you well know, whether it's regulatory or compliance requirements that do drive some differences in the products and services that my HR shared services team provides. But that was really the starting point. We had to get some enterprise standards in place so that we could lift and shift them into a centralized model. That then led to what I think was really important, having the right platform. So we started with process, then we moved to the right platform. And I think we'll talk a little bit about our move to Workday in a minute. But we really needed the right platforms that were industry standard that could really allow us to deliver at scale in the 110 countries that we have employees to be able to deliver in a global fashion. And then last but not least, and I think, again, your viewers will relate to this, it was about the people. It was about the change management. So all very well that you had an enterprise standard, all very well that you had the right platforms to deliver those products and services. But we needed to have the right behaviors. We needed to be able to trust that we could do and deliver on behalf of the businesses what they had done themselves previously. That meant we had to have trust. We had to have the right level of relationship. We had to invest the time in those relationships. So that, for me, Varun, over the last 3 or 4 years, has fundamentally been my personal journey from a leadership perspective: process, platform, people.
That's very insightful. Now, with shared services, Paul, and GE is certainly a pioneer in shared services. But when you think of shared services, you typically think of finance, accounting, purchase and procurement. HR shared services, I beg to say, is a relatively newer concept as compared to the other functions. So can you talk to us a little bit about the main tenets of GE's HR shared services vision and especially in regard to centralization of the different HR functions that are out there?
Sure. In Varun, I may be a little biased here, but I do think that the HR function lends itself equally, along with those others that you mentioned, to shared services. There are many things that are repeatable, that are we do lots of transactions, and basically the same way around the world. And my goal and the goal of the team is really to return value to our customers. I always describe, Varun, what I do and what my team does as a B2B to C model, right? The people who pay for my services are the business units of GE, but the true end consumer, the people who consume my services, are employees, GE retirees, are candidates for jobs at GE. And so when you think about it that way, I have two sets of customers to please. One, am I delivering a good set of services to the businesses at a good price? And am I delivering what our end users need and want as they come into the company and as they move through different roles during their time in the company? So I think about returning value each and every day to the businesses. I think about returning capacity to the field HR teams. Yep. Why have our limited resources focused on things that we can do much better centrally we can leverage the benefit of scale, we can drive down costs, and we can improve the employee experience. And we can let the business partners from an HR perspective focus on what's most important and what's most strategic for them. And that's really focusing on things like talent and things like culture, things like driving the right organizational design. So that's really where I see my team helping and adding value to the enterprise.
Yeah. Paul, that's very helpful. You talked about standardization, centralization, technology, doing more with less, right? How much of this was a change management function for you, right? Whether that's for your team or, like you were just mentioning, the consumers of your service, whether those are the business units or the people who are actually using the service, right?
I think it's all about change management, to be honest, Varun. I really think the easiest parts are defining a process, understanding how you want it to work, understanding what the KPIs should or shouldn't be, delivering the right technology. It really is about how our employees, both on my team as well as in the customers' teams, operate and work together. A lot of this is about letting go. If you're in the business, are you letting go of something that you, for a number of years, may have owned yourself? Now you're letting somebody else perform that service. You're letting somebody else touch the customers that you used to spend maybe a lot more time of doing transactions. And so I think this is all about change management, all about trust, all about relying on other people who I think are better placed with the better tools to deliver a shared service than can be done in a standalone business unit.
Well, that's helpful. Now, can we talk about technology a little bit? So, I think it's pretty much an open secret that GE has just implemented Workday.
That's right. We implemented late last year.
Yeah. And that was a huge implementation, right? It's probably one of the largest Workday implementations ever, at least in terms of complexity. And can you talk about just the challenges with getting such a huge, technology and, everything that it would have impacted, right? It impacted people, processes, your team, yourself. Can you talk about, that implementation a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And Varun, we knew that for a number of years we had to move away from the very complex ecosystem of tools and technology that, quite frankly, we built over the years, all with the right intentions, right? We customized, quite frankly, all of the technology that we were using for GE. Yeah. But what that meant, Varun, is that when we needed expertise, we couldn't find it in the external marketplace, right? Because nobody used the applications that we use because they were so unique to us. Yep. Now that we're on an industry known, an industry-wide platform, we can go to the market now and find people who are great at Workday, right? Great at Workday compensation, great at Workday learning, whatever it is that we need, we can find on the open market. That's terrific. Right now, when people join my team, I don't have to teach them how to use Workday, but what I can teach them is how we do things at GE. So that's been a big win for us. I think the other thing, Varun, and we're only 7 months into our journey, we haven't fully realized, obviously, the investment that we've made in the Workday platform. But I think the ceiling is truly higher. We can now expect much more of the technology. We can expect much more out of the data that we'll collect over the years as we transact within the Workday platform. And also for end users, Varun, for those people coming to GE from perhaps our competitors who also leverage the Workday platform, we don't need to teach them how to manage their teams in Workday. We don't need to teach them how to do a performance appraisal in Workday because they've done it and they're familiar with the platform and the ecosystem. So they're huge wins for us, Varun. When you're in a company that hires over 20,000 people every year, they are things that we now no longer have to teach our employees to do. Again, giving capacity back to those field HR teams who, quite frankly, have far more important things to do than teach people how to use a platform.
Yep. And I think the other advantage probably would be with Workday being a cloud solution, right? You can keep updating it without, worrying about doing it yourself or finding the right experts, as you pointed out. So that must be a huge advantage. But I can I can bet it was a huge change management exercise again, because folks must have been used to the old system and they wanted everything probably to be done the same way. And then you're getting this new system in place. So I bet that must not have been easy.
This
Right?
is a journey, Varun, as you well know.
Yep.
We know that this is a multi-year journey. We
Mhm.
certainly doubled down on change management. We invested heavily in change management resources.
Mhm.
In look, in years to come, Varun, we'll look back and it'll be similar to the journey that the banks had, right? Years
Yep.
ago, we all used to go to a bank and we'd wait for the teller and we'd get cash out of our bank accounts.
Yep.
Today, we go to a machine, right? Punch in a pin and out spits the money.
Yep.
Today, when you go to the bank, you're going there because you have a high value or complex transaction, right? Life
Yep.
insurance, a mortgage.
Yep.
That's true of HR shared services. If you want to update your bank account details, if you want a letter of reference, all of
Mhm.
that should be automated, right? But boy, if we're having a conversation about building a diverse and inclusive team, we probably don't want to automate that, right? We want to
Yep.
sit down and have a conversation, but let's
Yep.
create the capacity, that value, so that our HR business partners can spend the time focusing on those higher value transactions than payroll administration, benefits administration, and all those other things that my team does.
Yep. So, selfishly, I want to talk about intercompany for a minute,
Of
right?
course, I expect nothing less, Varun.
You know me well, Paul. So, how important is the whole cost allocation function for for your team for HR shared services, and what are the challenges, and are there any best practices, tips, do's and don'ts that you recommend to the people watching this video?
Yeah, so Varun, I talked about the B to B to C business model that I think that we run here at GE. In
Yeah.
my mind, the people paying the bills are the GE business units, and we have
Yeah.
9 of those who ultimately are paying for the services of what I call people operations.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, my aspiration is to deliver to those businesses on a monthly basis a detailed invoice like
Mhm.
I get in my consumer life, right? When I get my Comcast bill,
Mhm.
I know exactly how much I've consumed via the internet. I know
Yep.
the rate that I'm paying for that usage. I know what cable channels are included in my package. Maybe I've paid for a couple more premium channels.
Yep.
Maybe I bought an on-demand movie, right?
Mhm.
I truly get to know the cost of what I've consumed. My goal and the team's goal is really to get that level of granularity for our
Yep.
paying customers, so that Varun, ultimately the businesses can say, boy, I consumed this much last month. I
Yep.
really need to drive costs down, so I'm going to consume fewer of those next month. Maybe
Yep.
you're in a growth mode, right? Maybe you're onboarding and hiring. Maybe I need to increase the number of products I consume, and therefore I'll see my bill go up. But at least I know why my month to month bill is changing. And so we're not fully there yet, Varun, but ultimately that's where I expect we need to get to. And I
Yeah.
certainly know that the businesses expect me to get there.
Yeah, that's certainly a best practice. Even in our experience, it's having having control, right? So the end consumer really wants the ability, like you said, and it's not very different from any other consumer product, right? You only pay for what you consume, right? And I think with intercompany, it's pretty much the same. The service may be coming from inside your company, but they're held to the same standards that an external vendor would be held to.
That's right.
So I completely understand. Paul, the so speaking about vendors, how much of your total operations, how much do you make versus buy, right? What pieces would you kind of outsource to a third party, or then keep to yourself,
Yeah,
right?
it's a good question. And I think sometimes there is a misnomer, right, about shared services, Varun, that if it's shared services, it therefore equals delivered internally.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I'm about 50-50.
Mhm.
So I have as many contingent workers outside of GE as I do employees.
Mhm.
And so my delivery model's 50-50. In some places, Varun, it makes no sense given the number of GE employees, the number of customers we're serving, to invest in a particular region until it gets to a certain scale.
Yeah.
And in some places, I truly have scale and I truly have the internal capabilities. And so it's constantly a make buy decision. And we make those decisions on a quarterly basis. I mean, this is really fluid. Where it
Yeah.
makes sense to do it internally, we'll do it internally. Where it makes sense to do it externally, we'll do it externally. Understanding, though, that the customer's expectation is they have a need. And
Mhm.
whether I decide, my team decides to deliver or produce that inside or outside, there is that same level or expectation of quality, whether it's delivered inside or outside of the company.
That's great. That's great. What is the global footprint for your, delivery or your operations? How does that look like?
Yeah,
Is it
so
pretty global?
we support employees across 110 countries. We
Hmm.
have a number of strategic hubs located throughout the world
Yeah.
where we have scale advantages and where we want to lean into things like BPO capabilities that exist in a market like Bangalore in India,
Yeah.
in places like Budapest in Hungary. And then we also want to capitalize on time zones, right?
Yeah.
So where we have critical mass of employees, where can we support our biggest employee group, the US, from? And that
Mhm.
can typically be in a number of places across the Americas. And then, of course, there's things, Varun, that we can do from anywhere in the world where it makes sense to move a product from a cost perspective,
Yeah.
or maybe timeline or timeliness is not necessarily critical. So therefore, we can do it overnight in a place like China
Yeah.
for the US comes online the following day.
That makes sense. And that's one of the complexities that we see with large global operations like yours, right? It's these transactions moving around in different parts of the world. So you have to be conscious of all the laws and regulations and tax rules and accounting rules, and just moving things across and providing services across is something that we partner very effectively with companies like GE. Paul, I think this has been very helpful. What I want to do next is what we call the Insider Insights Lightning Round. So, first question: what is the state of HR shared services at multinational companies today?
Yeah, I think Varun, probably very similar to the experience we've had. I see a lot of large enterprises, multinational enterprises, who are either on the beginning of their cloud journey or on the other side of their cloud journey. And so
Yeah.
it's essentially consolidating their technology platform and enabling themselves to be able to be more agile in a cloud-based environment.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. How has remote working changed the trajectory that your operation was on? How has the whole past 15, 18 months been?
Yeah, look, credit to the team, Varun. We had constantly practiced business continuity planning, right? BCPs.
Mhm.
Never in our wildest dreams did we imagine that we would have to do this from home for 15, 18, months. Credit to the team. We continue to drive the same level of productivity we saw both pre-pandemic and during pandemic.
Mhm.
What I see is technology is really helping enable flexibility. So
Yeah.
that ability to work remotely going forward, I think, is more here to stay than it isn't. And we'll continue to see that flexibility in our workplace, certainly going forward.
That's great. That's great. How does HR shared services or an operations like like you run? How do they best stay on top of global regulations? Whether that's employment law, tax law. Basically around the company liability versus the employee liability. How do you guys manage to? Because this is a very complex landscape, right?
Yeah, certainly complex. So a couple of things, Varun. The way that I organize in product portfolios,
Yeah.
payroll product, benefits product, fleet and mobility products, and I organize around service delivery. So the Americas, the Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and
Yep.
Asia Pacific. I actually expect all of my product leaders, those that own a product,
Mhm.
to be well versed in regulation that mandates certain things. So I,
Yep.
I expect it to be embedded in the product.
Mhm.
At the same time as we deliver in all those countries that I talked about, we also lean into ecosystem partners. So whether it's a payroll provider, a benefits administrator, a
Mhm.
healthcare company, we have to lean into those relationships to make sure that we truly understand what's happening in the marketplace so that we can deliver a compliant product for our customer.
Yep. That's great. And now the last question. Now you have teams you pointed out spread, across the globe, and with pandemic-related lockdowns beginning to ease, are you happy with continuing to work remotely? Because it looks like you guys have been pretty successful doing that. Or are you anxious to get back on the road and see some of those faces that you've not seen for a long time?
Yeah, look, personally, Varun, I'd love to get back on a plane and hang out with the team around the world. I think in lieu of being able to do that in the short term, I'm actually doing next month a virtual world tour, which for all intents and purposes is me going to each of our key locations around the world. I'll just be doing it like we're doing it on Teams here today. In the absence of being able to travel, it's the best way I know to kind of hang out with the team in their normal business day. But I do think, Varun, on the other side of the pandemic, once we're back to kind of quote unquote normalcy, we'll see a lot more teleworking. But I also think that we'll see a lot more times when we come back into the office, more to focus on collaboration and innovation, less about coming to the office to do your normal day job, much more intentionality about why you may be in the office and what you want to accomplish the day or days you're in the office.
That makes a lot of sense. Paul, that's all I had. You did fantastic in the lightning round. So congratulations. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck with the rest of your shared services journey at GE.
It's never ending. Thanks for